Hey guys, happy Friday. There is a video that I've been thinking about doing for a while now, and this involves 10 signs that your spouse is cheating on you. Now, of course, my experience has been with men, but some women tend to exude the same type of behavior. So, I've had people message me, asking me about, how did you know? Did you have any warning when your husband left? Um, I was I was able to move on a lot easier in a way because I had had signs for about 2 years or so that he was planning on leaving or something was drastically wrong in our relationship. So I just have a list of 10 items. So if you're not sure your spouse is cheating on you, this is especially true of men in particular. So women out there, if you're not sure, these tend to be very common signs, and all 10 of these occurred in my own situation. So it's sad because I really shouldn't have been surprised when I caught him texting this other woman that he left me for, because he did exhibit all of these behaviors. But hopefully this can give you some insight, and you should be able you need to protect yourself, because if your spouse is cheating on you, a lot of people will say, oh, it's emotional only. That's very unlikely in most scenarios. Typically it's breached to that physical relationship. So you need to protect your own health, especially if your spouse is still being intimate with you. Thankfully that wasn't the case in mine, but still, you need to be able to protect yourself in multiple ways: financially, physically, emotionally, all of that. So let's go ahead and start. The first behavior that I'll talk about is your spouse has become suddenly cold, very, very distant. My ex-husband he wasn't a super warm person. He wasn't very touchy-feely, but when I can go back in my mind and remember when he started to really, really become cold and almost in a way heartless towards me. He wouldn't even ride in the same vehicle as me. He would not go places with me. He wouldn't go grocery shopping. He wouldn't go to dinner. Just treated me as if I was an inconvenience to his existence, if anything. And if we did happen to go to an event together, which was rare to begin with, getting him to ride in a vehicle with me, in the same vehicle to go to the same event, was like pulling teeth with him almost. He just did not want to even be that close with me. One thing also I will remember, when I switched from a third shift job to a first shift job, which he was also on first shift, still is, I believe. He did not like the idea of us sleeping in the same bed together, and that will also tie into the no intimacy portion, but I'll get to that later. So to sum up, cold, distant behavior, that is a sign. Number two, sudden interest in changing their looks, working out, wanting to lose weight, eating healthier, trying new styles that they never were even thinking about trying before, new hairstyles, maybe stuff you had even mentioned to them previously that they never would have done if you had suggested it. But now all of a sudden they're into getting fit and getting buff and grooming themselves differently. That's a pretty big indicator as well. Number three, this was a big one for me. This may not be as common with other situations, because I haven't heard this as much from other people, but a big flag for me was that he would refuse to spend holidays with us. So, for example, every holiday we would go to my mother's house or my grandparents, and the Christmas before I found out for sure that he was cheating, it was Christmas of 2016, we separated in February 2017. So what I happened to find out is that he didn't just, he made the excuse that his mother had passed and he just couldn't celebrate holidays anymore. This was a load of bull, as I should have seen it back then, and I did suspect, but I couldn't fathom that my husband, the person I had married, the person I had been with for almost 11 years, I could not picture that they would do this to me. I thought, oh, well, I'll just be understanding, I'll give him space. But come to find out, later time, he had spent that Christmas with the other woman, the woman he left me for. So that was a little crazy, going not only to my own family's Christmas, but then his family's Christmas, eating with them, with his little sister, and they're like, where's your husband? Why is he not here? So that's a big sign. That's a big sign. They'll probably give you excuses. Like I said, I don't know how common that is in other people's relationships, but that was definitely a big flag in mine. Number 4, no sex and no intimacy. There is a very crude old saying, especially with men, that if he's not getting it from you, he's getting it from somewhere. Now, my ex was like I said, he was not a super warm person. He was not a super lovey-dovey person. And he did not have a huge drive. So that declining wasn't so much of a shock as it not happening at all. You could just tell when someone goes to hug you or kiss you, or, if you're constantly getting rejected for intimacy, you're a married couple. So that expectation is there. If you're not sick, if you're not unwell, or something tragic has not occurred, you should be intimate with your spouse. That's kind of the whole being monogamous deal. So that if that is occurring and you're going super long periods of time, longer than even usual, even if your partner is low drive, if you go from once a month to once a year, that is a huge flag. Do not ignore that. Number 5, new bank accounts, new credit cards. All of a sudden, they're not bringing their pay stub home anymore. Or missing money in general. And this one, I really, really encourage people to please pay attention, because not recognizing this for what it was and allowing it and just kind of ignoring it, pushing it to the back of my mind, thinking that, no, my husband couldn't cheat on me. No, it can't be that he's spending money on someone else. Well, come to find out, he opened a new bank account. He would lie about his work hours. I won't really specify. I've mentioned he was a truck driver, so it's not like it was a solid 8 to 5. There could be differences there depending on when mills are open and that kind of thing. Sorry, I have very dry mouth. Have to keep this lubricated. So, come to find out, he stopped bringing his pay stubs home. I used to be the one to deposit his checks into the bank account, our shared bank account. Well, all of a sudden that stopped. And of course, keep in mind, this correlates, all of these symptoms happened around the same time and went on for about 2-ish years or so. I lived in that chaotic, miserable, neglectful environment, and it was a hell. So I really advise you, if you think you have missing money, if you think they have another bank account or a credit card, you need to look into that immediately, because don't get in the same situation where I did, where we got so far behind on bills. We essentially did get evicted from our home. Thankfully, we had another one to go to. But huge flag, pay attention to your money. Pay attention to your bank account. Look at your mail. Maybe even check your credit to see if something's been affected. That's one thing to look at. Number 6. This was a pretty big one for me. And like I said, I probably look like a fool for ignoring all these, but I think when you're in love, you really are blind to the fact that this person could hurt you in such a deep, scarring way. I cannot express to you how painful it is when you realize this has been done to you and you've been lied to for so long. They don't want you to see their phone. So number 6, they don't all of a sudden, I know in my situation, I had never had a lock on my phone. I never even thought to have one, and neither did he. But all of a sudden, he'd become very funny about me seeing his phone. He did not want me to Google on it. Let's say my phone was going low on battery, and I was like, hey, can I see your phone? I need to Google something. If there's any hesitation involved and you're a married woman, you're a married couple, what are you hiding? So if he's starting to hide his phone from you or keep it real close to his pocket, under his pillow, you should be questioning something. Go get text messaging history if you can from your phone company if you want proof. You may need that proof for court, especially if you have children or some type of child support involved. Thankfully, mine was not that complicated thus far. So be aware of that. Number 7 is kind of a more subtle one, but you may want to pay attention. Your husband's friends, if he is, and of course, if you're a guy and this is your wife, if your spouse's friends have always been relatively friendly with you and close, if all of a sudden they start to distance themselves from you, you may want to question why. A lot of people don't want to tell on their friend when they are cheating on their spouse. A lot of them don't want to tell on them because it will upset them. They don't want to get caught in the middle of a marriage battle. I completely understand, but you need to pay attention when other people's behavior, people who are close to them, it wasn't like this in my case, but maybe like siblings, they're not as close to you as maybe they were. That's something you really, really, really want to pay attention to. Don't brush it off like I did. Don't do that. Number 8 is a huge one. And I think a lot of women, this can be common for cheating wives as well, but this is especially with men. I've noticed when they have a temper tantrum over nothing, or if they're very aggressive or mean to you, you forgot to get them the right fries or the right size fry from a fast food restaurant, and they blow up at you. I can remember one incident, and I'm not even sure. I don't think he was with this other woman at the time, but I think he had been probably fooling around, or something was not right. Something was wrong. I remember this one incident. We were trying to save money, and I had brought home dinner, and I had eaten just a couple of his fries out of it was an Arby's meal, I think I remember correctly. And I just eaten a couple. I didn't want to waste money buying a whole thing. I didn't really think, no big deal, didn't really think anything about it. His main interest was always the sandwich anyway, or at least up until that moment it was. Well, when I got home and delivered his food to him on the sofa, I'll never forget it, he screamed and yelled and cursed and called me terrible names. My little sister had moved in with us at the time. If you don't know about that situation, you can go look in my highlights and it'll give you more of a background as why I had my 14-year-old sister living with me. And he was speaking to me so badly that my sister was appalled. She was so upset. And he ended up throwing an Arby's sandwich in her face. So that is literally one example of many. I mean, I have had holes thrown into my walls from water bottles. I have had items broken. It is a very scary atmosphere that is not normal. You will try to normalize this experience, but it is not normal. Do not accept it. Do not accept that treatment. It is abuse in a form. They don't have to lay their hands on you for it to be abuse. That is an emotionally abusive environment. If you're walking on eggshells, if you're scared to upset your spouse, take that. For one, get out of the situation. 2, if they're doing it and it's not in their character, it could be a sign of infidelity. So, number nine out of my list is he accuses you of cheating, or he or she. I think this is common in both men and women from what I've read. If they're starting to accuse you of cheating, and they're serious, out of nowhere, making comments about your body, oh, this doesn't look the same, or oh my gosh, you're doing this, you're cheating, I know you are. And it happened to me one time with my ex, and it's the most preposterous thing ever to be imagined, because I was a very dedicated wife. I stayed at home when I wasn't working. I didn't go out. I don't party. I'm not that kind of person. And when he accused me of cheating, his own sister came to me and was like, look, I think, I've always heard the old saying, if they're accusing you, it's because of the guilt they feel inside for what they're doing to you. And it turned out to be true in my case. And now I'm not saying this is true in all cases. Please, take what I say with a grain of salt. Not everything will be absolute for everyone. But if your spouse has never accused you of that kind of thing, in addition to the other behavior that they're exhibiting, and you're not changing really anything that you're doing, you may want to take it as a symptom of something bigger going on. And the last one, number 10, is you happen to find them, of course, this would be more obvious, is to find them texting another individual, but let's tone it back some. You find them on a hookup site. Now, I'm not talking about porn. Porn that's a whole different topic. A lot of women go on porn sites. That's not a sign of cheating, at least not in my book. But if you find them on a hookup site, especially now that we have things like Tinder, you have things that can hide apps like Tinder, so you can't see them. But back when this occurred, and back when I found my ex on this really crude, like message board, like pre-Tinder, all of that hookup site, I was told that he had to fill it out. He had to fill his profile out on that website in order to get access to a specific porn website. And being the gullible, not, I won't even say naive, just being gullible and foolish and wanting to believe my ex, I believed him, that he wasn't on there looking for hookups while he was over the road. He may not have been. I don't have proof, 100% sure. However, along with everything else, I should have really taken this as a sign that something was wrong. I was thankful. But there's a lot of people who are cheated on. They end up with things they can't get rid of. They end up with STDs. They end up with HIV. They end up with HPV. I've spoken with 2 or 3 women recently in my own divorce support group who now have HPV and are at a high cancer risk because of their husband's infidelities. So it's a very serious topic. If maybe seeing 1 or 2 of these symptoms, maybe that's not indicative of cheating. But if you're seeing a whole collection of these, or like in my case, all of them, you really want to look into it to protect yourself physically, emotionally, financially, and just keep in mind that you deserve better than that. And no matter how you feel about yourself, no matter what your ex, if they talk to you negatively about, you'll never find better, good luck finding someone else, you will. There's 7.5 billion people on the planet. Trust me, there's someone else who will match you probably a lot better than your current spouse. So that's it for now, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Talk to you later.